Hey folks, how's it going? This is Seagull here, and today I'm responding to some speculation that we may have a clue that University is coming to The Sims 4. Recently, The Sims 4 underwent a controversial rebranding, which features new box art with these Sims on it, and they did actually upload all of these Sims to the gallery, all with their own individual backstories. And one in particular has caught the community's eye, and that is of the woman in the top right, Morgan Park. So to read off the description, it says, Morgan is all in, all the time, driven by her lifelong love of sport. Morgan believes life is meant to be lived, not spent behind a desk. She's always up for any adventure her friends suggest, and always pushes herself to do more. With her track and cross-country scholarships, she was always a top-performing athlete at university. She's currently training for her first Ironman competition, which means a lot of time in the pool and on a bike. So, that's really cool. Ironman competition. So I guess that confirms a Marvel crossover. No, of course not. But yeah, I do find it interesting that university and a bike is mentioned, but more so university. It's no secret that University is a very highly requested feature for The Sims 4, so it's interesting that University is mentioned in Morgan's story. Maybe you could say that this is just a coincidence, especially since in real life a lot of people do go to university and maybe they just wanted to put a lot of detail into her story, so it doesn't necessarily have to be a hint. But there is one other Sim with an interesting tidbit in her story. And that is with Dula Ostro. Yeah, that's actually how you say her first name. I actually looked it up and I was surprised. It's apparently French in origin. So to read her story, it says, as a kid, Dula lived all over the world, shadowing her mom, a globally sought-after fashion photographer. That experience gave Dula an inherent sense of optimism and a deep entrepreneurial spirit. She recently launched her first fashion line, and her unique pieces and global style is starting to get press. Her girlfriend Mia, a designer in her own right, helps keep her informed of trends outside the fashion industry. During EA Play in June, Simguru Duke did mention in the live stream that as part of the Moschino stuff pack, we will be getting a part-time fashion photographer career. And sure enough, here in this story, it does mention that Dula's mother is a globally sought-after fashion photographer. So it is interesting to me that they did write something into a Sim's backstory for content that, at least at this time, is not released yet. So if it weren't for Dula's backstory, I would have been a lot more dismissive of this theory that Morgan's story has a hint towards university. But this seems to make it a little bit more likely. Of course, it is still just a backstory though. This isn't something crazy like when Origin leaks the latest expansion pack a day before the announcement happens. So of course something like that, or when something in the code gets leaked, like with cats and dogs, I think about half a year in advance was when that happened. Yeah, I put a lot more stock into those sorts of things. Also, I did notice some details in a couple of other Sims stories where there's some things where it's like, oh, it doesn't necessarily have to mean that it's coming into the game in the future. For example, in Camille Abiza's story, it mentions that she grew up in France and often visits her relatives in Morocco. But that doesn't necessarily hint that France and Morocco are both worlds coming to The Sims 4. Also, with Zoe Flores' story, it says that she volunteers as a youth dance teacher at a local community center. So does that hint that we're going to be getting a dance instructor career? I don't know, that'd be cool. We actually do have that in The Sims Mobile already, so that would be kinda cool to see that in the PC version. Her story also mentions that she's been passionate about dance since preschool. Does that mean preschool is going to be coming to the game? I feel like that's far less likely than university, though. I would still like the ability to run our own daycare, just like we did in The Sims 3. That was definitely one of my favorite professions in that game. So, I don't know. Maybe I just opened up the floodgates here. Maybe all this is hints to stuff. that is coming in the future. But once again, we'll just have to wait and see. Regardless of this stuff though, I've been saying even before 2019 started that it would be pretty likely that we'd get University this year because they've done so many of the popular and predictable ideas like pets and seasons and a city, and we just got island living, so that covers the tropical theme. So there isn't as much left for them to do as there was a few years ago. And like I said earlier in this video, University is a pretty popular request. University first made its debut in The Sims 2, and it was pretty well liked. And then when The Sims 3 came out, a lot of us requested University. And it actually did take quite a long time for that to come to The Sims 3. It was one of the last expansion packs. So I don't think it's unreasonable to think that University will at some point come to The Sims 4. There's just too much potential money to not do it ever. And the University experience is something that a lot of people around the world go through at some point in their lives. Just like how with pets, a lot of people in real life have owned a pet at some point, and a lot of people have experienced some kind of weather too. Even though some people can get by without a post-secondary education and become a huge success, that's not the case for many people. So I do feel like it would be really weird if The Sims 4 never got a University pack. And especially considering Paralives is a thing now and is really making a lot of people think, oh, I'm gonna switch over to Paralives once this game comes out and bye Sims forever. I mean, I didn't mean to reference Sims Forever in The Sims 4, you know what I mean. So especially with The Sims having competition possibly now, it's not a game that's actually out yet, but still, I hope a fire is lit under their feet over at Maxis. And I mean, especially considering Island Living disappointed so many people, they really need to not screw up whatever the next expansion pack may be. And if it is University, there's gonna be a lot of expectations. So do I think Morgan's backstory is hinting at a University pack? It doesn't necessarily have to, but I think there is slightly more stock that we can put in this hint in comparison to what I normally see in the Sims community, because I do feel like a lot of people jump to conclusions very easily and look for hints in the slightest things and just use their imagination, and sometimes it happens to be true, and then sometimes it's not, or it comes true years later. But especially since Dula's backstory does mention that her mother is a fashion photographer, and that is going to be part of the upcoming Moschino stuff pack, I do feel like this so-called hint is not really reaching nearly as hard. And since this whole rebranding thing is meant to refresh the game for years to come, it is possible that they were thinking ahead too, and not just stuff that's come out for the game since it first launched in 2014. Even going back to Zoe's story, which mentions being a dance teacher, I feel like that would not be too far-fetched a thing that we could get in the future, because it could maybe fit into a hobbies pack if that comes in the future, which I really hope so. That is something I would really love to see, either as a game pack or an expansion. And if that does mean that France and Morocco and bikes are all coming to the game too, I think they'd also be really great additions to the game. I've noticed, especially with a lot of the recent packs, because every game pack and expansion pack that we've got since the beginning of last year, except for Seasons, because Seasons focused on revamping the existing worlds through weather rather than giving us an entirely new one. But since there does seem to be at least 3 years left of The Sims 4, there is potential that we could go to more places around the world, and I have seen SimGuru Grant express interest in having a world based in Africa, even though he's not actually working on The Sims 4 anymore, but I'm sure he at least helped plan out some of that content that he keeps saying is 3 years out from now. As for bikes, I would not be shocked to see them come to the game, especially since we just got boats with Island Living, and I don't think it would make sense to stop there, especially since cars are also very highly demanded, and I personally do want cars very badly as well. So feel free to let me know in the comment section below if you do think University is coming, or do you think you need to see a bit more possible evidence before you believe that? And be sure to subscribe if you want to keep up with my latest content from The Sims, Sonic the Hedgehog, and more. So I will talk to you all later, and have a great day. Thanks for watching!